They say that absolute power corrupts absolutely. With great power comes great responsibility. And I've got the power, which are going to be three different facets of the many aspects of power we're going to be looking into today. So, thank you for joining us, your power conduit, your captains of the void. I'm Nagy. With me, the electric eel himself. How are we doing tonight, Fish?
Doing awesome, man. I saw Naked and Afraid one time, and they were trying to chop down an electric eel, and it shocked them while they were all in the water and naked, and that's what I want to be remembered for. As the eel that shocked naked people on national television.
Okay. There we go.
Let's get into it.
Stumbled upon this. Oh, happy Thanksgiving, by the way. Little post, but this is actually what kind of brought some of this thinking into my brain, was because Thanksgiving is always a very interesting play of like physical power and prowess in some things, especially along the lines of many sitcoms.
I wouldn't say physical. I would say it's like acts and gestures, because at this Thanksgiving, honestly said to everybody, I was like, look, if we're going to do this, we can't do this like white people, okay? We have to do at least some of the items that the Native Americans did. Do we have any deer as opposed to turkey? Everybody was like, no. And turkey's good. I'm like, nah, we could do deer. That's better, but whatever. Next thing is, are we going to play lacrosse? Okay, some of us played lacrosse. That was cool. That was fun.
Fair.
Demonstrations of military prowess. So I shot a little bit of archery. Okay. Nobody else really joined in on that. I got a bunch of looks at that. Again, as the white guy trying to celebrate everybody, I don't know how I stand for all this.
Right.
And then the last one that nobody wanted to participate in was wrestling. So, and this is all what happened at the first Thanksgiving. We just ignore these parts, the fun parts, I would argue.
Right. For me, yeah, okay. So, yeah, if you want to go standard for Thanksgiving on that one, for sure. For me, it was always like more the symbolism of the power of like, yo, are you carving the turkey? Like, when's the father figure handing the knives and the carving down to you? Like, or do you have one of those electric cutters? But I am actually way with you that turkey is not something. I like turkey legs. Anyone who's known me, Renfest of the Seas we're trying to do. Turkey legs, phenomenal. Then you're just stuck with like 12 pounds of dry white meat. I am all for doing other things that we even started doing in Florida, where you're just like, no one wants turkey. Should we just do like ribs and stuff? And we just started like barbecuing, because why not? And then it made Thanksgiving a lot better. Of like all the stuffings inside still, but like, hey, let's have like meat that everyone actually enjoys. So I respect the deer definitely to the max. Even throwing it in.
That's what I'm doing next year, like 100%. I even texted my cousin. I was like, brother, when the comes out this year, we're making sure that mule deer is on there, because we can find them anywhere. And I'm getting my A ticket on it, and I am making sure it's on the table, because I am not eating white meat again. And Thanksgiving will be at my house next year, and I will make sure we have deer, jalapeno poppers, cranberries in our salad. See, like, we can do that.
There you go.
We can do some cream of corn as opposed to corn on the cob, where I have to sit there and pluck my teeth out for an hour and a half afterwards. Like, I'm just saying, let's tidy this up. If we're going to choose to keep the shitty parts of it as opposed to the fun parts of lacrosse and shooting and wrestling, and like, let's at least just a la carte the whole damn thing at this point.
Yeah, in my eyes. That's what we found. We were like we had like chips and hummuses and salsas and all kinds of like crazy delicious things, and it was like, this isn't Thanksgiving. Like, are you thankful to be here and around your friends? Then we fucking nailed it. Moving along, like, we don't have to just eat the crap that no one wants. Like, do you bring a fruit cake? Like, no one eats those. Those are just, those sit in the fridge till they become even more rock hard, and then people chuck them.
Exactly.
But
And what 4-star restaurant do you go to that has
turkey.
that's serving up turkey and stuffing? Like,
Yeah, well, the stuffing, that one I will eat that anytime. But yeah,
yeah, but
otherwise,
I'm
like you
saying
said,
no. I'm saying who's serving it up. That's my
yeah,
thing.
fair.
Like, when
Yeah,
are you
very
going
fair.
out chasing down these items?
Like, yeah, you go and like, oh, they make the best turkey. Like, cool. Where is it? Like a Boston market? Because other than that, like, yeah, no one's seeking this out unless it's on a sandwich.
The only reason we enjoy pumpkin pie is because it's seasonal.
Right.
Like, if you
eat
like,
it
you can
enough,
get
and
pumpkin
then
in
you
a
don't.
can year round, and nobody fucking does. Nobody.
Yeah. Always very funny things, and yeah, like I said, to me, it was always the power dynamics of family. Of this is tradition. Like, why? Like, for who? No one like, oh, I always make this. Like, why? Like, because no one eats it. Like, sweet, thanks for your contribution.
Yeah, let's lie to Aunt Judy about how shitty her tamales are again. Like,
Right. Like, okay, sweet.
all right, let's rein this back in. Back to power.
Bring it back in. Yeah,
to-
so back in, like I said, so it just made me laugh because, all the streaming services now, they start doing like the collections of these shows. So you can watch just the Thanksgiving episodes of a show, just the Christmas episodes, just the Halloween episodes. And there's a bunch of them that I absolutely love, like New Girl and Brooklyn Nine-Nine, all those things. I watched them and I was like, dude, these are super common tropes of like men fighting over who gets to cook the turkey, who gets to cut the turkey, who prepared the turkey. Like, the only one that really made me laugh that I think you'd appreciate is in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. There's one episode where like Boyle's like, we have to kill it today so it's fresh, and they like try and kill a turkey, but again, the shenanigans that throw that everybody's like, why didn't he kill it? It's like, because they didn't, like, this is how you do it. Like, but again, the tropes of like, oh my God, I'm not man enough to do blank for this. And I was like, what interesting dynamics of power that we've had shifted in our lives. And that brought me to the biggest fractal patterns of like self-analysis that went from like super deep to the most random of how my ideas of like personal power and empowering things has shifted in the past 5 years, more times than I can even know, to the point where I didn't even know it was under my feet for the longest time.
Okay. So what is the why then behind this topic? Because you've told me, you're like, there's power things that are happening. I'm missing some things. What was really dreaming this to the surface?
Definitely a culmination of things of finally being able to kind of put it more into words. Like, I've got a thought. Like, okay, what is it? Like, I don't know yet. It's still kind of bubbling. Like, literally grasping at a dream where you're like, I know what happened and it was crazy, but each time I try and think about it, it just slips a little bit more. And there was more and more things. And I think, honestly, the election was the biggest tipping point where, the get out and vote, do everything, blah, blah. And it wasn't like who you vote for, how you vote, what's happening, whatever. Just started looking at it and like seeing the power that there's some people in this like country that they throw around. Like, when you start hearing the numbers of just what both sides are spending just on the political campaigns or just on advertisements or blank. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just trying to buy a house. And these guys are throwing around like 10 lifetimes worth of money to just try and do it this 1 year. And in 4 years, people are going to be doing it all over again. I was like, and then pictures of like the stars have been crazy clear in Minnesota. So you kind of look up and you're like, man, this is a big freaking universe. And we're just tiny specks. So I kind of stopped being like, oh, I feel so powerless with the election and the world and World War III and aliens and the cold coming. And then like, well, what gives me feelings of power? Like, what am I doing that's benefiting other things? And they went as deep as to being like, I have now focused my life on raising this small human and trying to provide jobs to like I have the power to go get a bag of Doritos that some people in this world have never tasted and people from the past could not even fathom. So they were like crazy deep and also super shallow to kind of keep it like just nice and balanced out. But that's where I was just like, where can we kind of go with these ideas of power and like what it means to each person and kind of how it's changed for you in maybe the past X amount of life changes. And then how I've had probably like, 4 or 5 in the past 4 or 5 years that have shifted my things greatly.
I don't really understand the Doritos analogy. I don't see power in Doritos.
Like the power that you have, you're tasting so many sensations that there's people on this planet today and definitely from like the 50s can't even dream of. That's pretty powerful.
I guess, yeah.
Like we can Google Point Nemo, which is in like not the middle, but it is a point in the Pacific. It's the furthest most point away from all of land in the entire planet. And somebody from another point in time, like we can look at it, we can see the ocean depths, like we have the power of all this knowledge. Are we using it for anything good? Usually not really. But like there's people on this planet today that will never know about that. And then people throughout all of history that had no idea that was even a thing. Like,
I think the Library of Alexandria metaphor is much better than Doritos.
But again, like I've just been sad and I saw a bag of Doritos and I was like, there's people on this planet that have never tasted a Dorito. Like that's a bummer.
Okay.
But again, super shallow, super deep. That's how we're gonna ride this train.
Okay. You also in your, I'd say, obsession with power for 48 hours, sent me a book to read called Introvert Power.
Correct.
Which
it was one of the many fractals of like things to go, and I'm so glad that you picked this up and ran with it because I went down rabbit holes of other ways, and when you kept texting me stuff I was like, at least there'll be a nice coherent thought to tell myself.
And you were scaring me by not texting me back because I was like, this is like a well thought out thing. Like this isn't just random bullshit. Like what's going on here?
It was just spurts of like research on a bunch of different things, and that popped up and I was like, dude, we have to read this again. And then you're like, I got it, I'm already into it, this is nuts. And I was like, oh, my library thing says I'll get it in 3 months, so I'm just going to keep moving on. And you're like, what? And I was like, don't worry about it, power to the people. And just kept rolling. You're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, we'll talk about it on the episode, let's roll. Like
Well, you also did some of your own research. Don't knock yourself down. And did some research on BDSM. So tell us what BDSM has to do with power.
Again, I was just trying to think of like tons of different like things in life that gave people power. And of course, there's sexual power there, and that BDSM was just kind of the easiest one because my Google algorithm started being like, what the fuck are you looking at? Like, is this porn or are you trying to do like works cited? Because I thought it was very, again, straight with politics was like the hand in hand of like all these crazy powerful people in sexual relationships, or you kind of hear about, this person likes to go into a dungeon and be dominated, like the power shift, things like that. So I tried going into that for a bit, and dom sub relationships are their own form of release and power for a lot of people, and definitely way more interesting than I actually would have given way more credit for. Of doms being a dominant, so there's dominant and a submissive in a relationship, and a lot of times they go together, and then like a dom will get power from overpowering the sub, but the sub can even have their own power of like letting themselves go, letting themselves be dominated. But in the end, they have an ultimate power too, to like set limits and be like, nope, that was too far. You're stopping here, things like that. If it's ever like, if a no is ever ignored, it's like crazy unhealthy. So like that, those ideas of power was just a very interesting thing. And I mean, sex is its own thing of power everywhere. There's some people that find sex and going out and having sex, you know, whether it's conquering, putting another notch on your belt, was a guy or a girl or whatever, things like that. Or, you know, I was trying to find any like solid research on like a naked male versus a naked female, like in different situations. So I was thinking about like if you threw a naked guy on a stage, it's usually more comedic. If you threw a naked girl, there's always going to be some sense of like sensuality to it, or like maybe even like vulnerable. Like, and that was a crazy dynamic to kind of get into versus just like. And then I started laughing because I thought about Pompeii, where they're still just drawing dicks all over walls for the past thousands of years, and you're like, all right, humans are humans kind of throughout time. So that was the sexual aspect of it that, you know, again, we could do an entire episode. We could have a series just going down sexual fantasies and kinks, and I think it would be really fun. And looked out for some dominatrices, but Craigslist in Minnesota has a very wide spectrum that I was like, you know what? We're going down way too many avenues, so we might have to hit this person up another time. I actually pursued down this avenue. It's its whole own thing. But again, like just sex as a form of power, you know, whether it's guys or girls doing different things, you know, and then the empowerment of OnlyFans or porn or things like that could go either direction for all the things of mechanics that my little brain just started going, this is, how do I bring this back to Doritos? But it was a nice little funny rabbit hole to kind of shoot down, and at least that to be like, you know, especially being in a relationship now, like sex and things like that have just not been that form of power that I've sought since pre-Jera.
Okay. I will say on the opposite ends of power from sex, being strong and self-sufficient is one thing that always gives me power. Like, can you hear me? Okay. Being strong and self-sufficient is always something that gives me form of power. Is like whenever anybody wants to do anything, always having the energy in the gas tank to do it and make it happen. Like, for example, the day you wanted to go play pickleball, I biked and then go played pickleball. Or one of our favorite stories that we have is when you ran the fitness test and I just walked off to work afterwards and you were sucking down wind in the corner.
The shower and like made sure I had half the day off before I could do it. Yeah.
So like that is a form of power to me, is always being able to do that type of stuff and always being strong and sufficient. Like on a hike, I brought my giant water bottle and my girlfriend goes, "Oh, you're carrying that." I was like, "Oh, then just give me the backpack. I'll put it all in there and carry the backpack." And I'm just like billy goating up the side of this mountain. And she goes, "Holy cow. How are you like still talking to me with that on your back and running up the hill?" And I am out of breath. And I don't know, part of the game. Just keep.
This is what I do. Yeah.
So that has always been a source of power for me. And the same aspect is being able to help others is with those same things, is being able to carry stuff for people, being able to carry people that need it, you know, being able to help somebody when they, what's the word I can, least can ask for it, if that makes sense, you know, that's always been a source of empowerment.
Right.
Yeah.
Just a shoulder to physically or mentally lean on.
Yeah, I'm here. Like if you're 87 years old and we're walking at night, I'm going to stand where you can put your arm around me somewhere, right? Like, or I'm going to keep my arm near you somewhere just in case for reasons. So like, that's always been a good source of power to me.
Now, if you have a point of vulnerability, like, I don't know, the last time you were injured or whatever, or let's say you're going, like you're stepping onto a boat or off a boat and someone offers their hand, will you take it? Or are you kind of like that, no, I'm self-sufficient and I have the power to do this without any aid?
Depends the risk reward. If it ever tips over 50-50, then I'd take the help. Like if it ever goes
Meaning,
60-40 where it could go south, then I'm going to take the help.
Like, so you're like, oh, this is kind of slippy. I should need it. Or no, I'm good. Like, I trust my footing, my shoes, this deck. I'm good.
Yeah, like if I'm jumping a foot, right? Like a whole foot of a gap, I don't need help. I'm strong. I'm sufficient. If it's a 3-foot gap and that boat's on the way out, buddy, stick your arm out. I'm coming in hot. You know, like.
Right, no, what I'm saying, like that point of vulnerability, that 1 foot thing, but a guy's just got his hand up to help you for no, like just because there are other people. You're not taking it.
Probably not, but I won't like wave it off or anything. I'll just kind of move through it as if I didn't see it. Not no, you know, like I'm not gonna. Oh no, man, I'm good. Watch this.
Get that out of here.
No, I'm just gonna like pretend to keep my head down and miss his arm, or you know, like you can go around it so that there's enough going on that it just flows with time.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so that goes along with like physical, because that's one of the things I've noticed I've been lacking, because the physicality and kind of matching up to Atlas's thing is something I've been drooping more in. And so, along with taking baby steps to try and amend that, but there's other things, like I said, a lot more of my power has come from like mental things of just either relinquishing power or finding it in different ways. Like I said, using knowledge, or, you know, at work, I was getting really upset with not feeling that power anymore of like the knowledge. Like 5 years on ships, I knew those ships in and out. I knew shifts. I knew everything. I walked around. I had the power to make and break people's vacations, and did that. Starting new jobs here, you know, you're like basically powerless, where I go, hey, I can do A, B, and C, but now I'm asked to do D. Can you please provide some help to teach me? And they go, yeah, we're a little busy, but we'll do it later. And now I'm just kind of like floundering, being like, I'm pretty powerless. Like, what is embodying those power? Like I said, so for me, knowledge and my knowledge of areas was always a source of power. So on ships, it was like, hey, where's bingo? And it's like, I'm sports. You don't like, I would never say I'm sports. I don't know where bingo is. It's like, yo, I know exactly where that is. I want to know what crew staff's doing. I want to know, you know, we involved ourselves in every cog of the wheels of ships. And so just finding those different things. And now it's like getting that knowledge up of what's going on with Atlas. How's his life changing? Like, what little things is he going through? He just went through his first like true tantrum tonight, like full on, took the toy away, like standing, screaming, unconsolable. Even after we like came and like kind of gave little bits of it back to be like, here you go. It was like too far gone. And I was just like, damn, like, okay, his brain is now developing to points and doing these other coping mechanisms. And I actually calmed him down. And it was like, that was a crazy source of power for me to be like, you know, this was like just with love and kindness and all this knowledge that I have from whatever, to be able to, you know, console my child and get this, you know, atomic bomb talked down off a cliff and get ready for bed. Like, those are small little crazy steps that I'm taking to just shift, like, you know, again, the lack of physical, it's now trying to just be more mental with things.
So let me ask you this then, because I did text you about this. Was one of the things that they talked about in the Introvert Power was the maturity of a child was for how long that they could be alone in alone time, and how important that was for children to distinct. Did you use any of those tactics with Atlas or power? I don't know. What word do you want to use for that? Skills? Testing? Tactics, skills? I think is fair. Skills?
Tactics is a good, for small humans, tactics is a perfect word.
All right.
So, yeah. No, and I mean, we have looked into that a lot. You can't leave toddlers to their own devices too much. It's, you know, you definitely can. He's, you know, 1 3/4. So he's able to sustain himself in many things. So like, he'll say he wants to play with Hot Wheels. I'll make the track for him. Mm-hmm. And then he can sit and play with it on his own.
Okay.
And he will go do things, or he'll, He wants to play with his Play-Doh, so you set that up for him, and he will entertain himself for a while. But guess what? I was doing the dishes, and I hear him on the table, and then I start hearing some laughing and thud, and guess what? 3 out of the 4 like chunks of Play-Doh were on the table, and we're still not sure where that other chunk is. He can do things on his own, and we are very adamant about letting him be self-sufficient and self-maintaining. But at the same time, it's like, when he's a little child, there's more times that Jared and I will just kind of like sit around the corner and like watch, because it is fascinating to watch him entertaining himself. So those times where it's like, can't you be doing something else? You're like, yeah, probably. But this is really fucking crazy to watch too, that he's becoming more self-sufficient and things like that. And yeah, hopefully later on in life, we keep doing that without, the absence of screens and stuff like that. Like, oh, my child will sit for hours by themselves. Like, no, they're sitting for hours with YouTube and flashing lights. Like, it's not quite the same.
Well, then let me ask you for you. How comfortable do you feel with alone time? Because as you said at the top of the show, you were over doing stuff alone from your boss and you needed people around you.
Yeah. There's definitely, it's definitely situational. I mean, I don't know. The last time I had alone time was like beginning of the month, like November. Jara went on a ladies' cruise with Atlas, and it was the first time she'd left with him. So it was just me and Disney. So I would go to work and then come home and like take Disney out, take care of that, and then I had alone time.
Okay.
And like small workout, just kind of chilling. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, one of the things I did was just have an open beer and watch Monday Night Football, because I got to watch the football game. I got to have my beer open on like the table that's very like a very low altitude, like very reachable for things like oh, look at this glass of beer on the table. I don't have to worry about getting knocked over. Like there were small flexes like that where it was just like I'm using my alone time to do that kind of stuff where I don't have to put on the TV show Jared and I want to watch. Like I just want to have some football on and look at my phone and drink a big beer, like small things like that. But then there's other times of being alone too much. I'm not going into, deep meditative thoughts. Like rarely will I have no music, no podcast, no audiobook on, just chilling with my own thoughts and kind of seeing where they take me. Like kind of chilling in that.
So when was the last time you did that then? So back to the question. When was the last time you had alone time? Beginning of November, so a month ago?
Yeah, basically.
That is absolutely wild.
Yeah, that's the life
because
that
this book
has evolved.
Because this book argues that you should be doing it almost daily, like 30 minutes to an hour of absolute alone time in however aspect that you do, because that is where the introvert's mind actually grows, because introverts and extroverts both thrive on two different things. One of the cool parts that they asked was introverts were more often in the pursuit of X, whereas extroverts were often X, as in extroverts were often happy. Introverts are in the pursuit of happiness, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
And the difference between the two stimuli is what drives them oftentimes is if you're an extrovert, you need the external stimulus, which is oftentimes very short term and very in the moment of, hey, look, I'm enjoying X in front of me, right? Or people that are talking to me, or interactive item. Whereas introverts are oftentimes in the pursuit of something because they're chasing down dreams and ideas that they have inside of their head. So if you don't have the alone time for your dreams and inside what's going on inside of here to pursue and grow, then it talks to back that desire area where I was texting you too, because it was like that not alone time is also desires not being met. Because one of the things that they talk about is oftentimes introverts have these moments of powerlessness, and that's because they're not letting their internal space grow. And that can be a special place in the house. That could be an art project you're working on. That can be a book. That can be cooking, if that's your thing, whatever said item is, right? Like, but if you don't have a space for you to truly be what's inside your head, then you're never going to have that flourish out into the world. It was fascinating.
Yeah. No,
So-
I definitely, when you were texting that kind of stuff, like I said, I was like, damn it, I'm going to have to get my hands on this book at one point.
What are your thoughts on that after thinking, like hearing that, on not having alone time? Do you think that you may be missing out on areas of that thriving? Because I'm saying, for me at least, I recognized it more in my day-to-day of like, oh, this is why I swim with no headphones. This is why I run with no headphones and no like external stimulus other than my breath and my heart rate monitor, So, or archery or a bunch of different things. But where do you give yourself opportunities for that? And what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, I definitely can appreciate it. I mean, I don't know if I would identify as an introvert.
For sure.
But
like we can, you don't at all. But I think these general principles can apply to anybody.
Yeah, but no, I mean, like, I definitely believe self-reflection is important, but I think the biggest shift I've had in that is that self-reflection is maybe just like a lot of the times it's just in the morning, like right when my alarm goes off and I've convinced myself to get out of bed and I sneak out to the living room where I'm putting on my work clothes and doing my morning routine. Rarely am I taking the extra time to pick a song or a stand-up comedy or a podcast. But that is times when I'm just like chilling, letting my brain kind of just come to on its own. So I'm getting ready, going through my process of, self-care, and then like making coffee. And then when I finally get a chance to kind of like chill and I'm like, all right, I'm pretty much ready. Probably going to take Disney out. Now I kind of want to put on something to listen to. But I think it would even surprise you how many times that I go out and I'm like, I want to listen to something informative, and I'm searching and searching and searching, and I go, dude, I just can't find shit right now, and I just put my headphones away, and then I'll just walk Disney with just chilling. So I mean, it definitely, like, it is very whimsical for me. Rarely am I like, this is my time that I'm gonna sit in my corner or go on my walk or do my thing and just mind palace. It's sort of like, if it's following that whimsy, I'm going for it. Otherwise, I'll take the time during those activities to dwell on my own thoughts and kind of see where my own inner monologue is going to take me, versus like constantly seeking external stimuli of some sort. But I would say more often than not is when I will seek something, because especially like in the morning, there's times where I'm like, oh, what are my thoughts telling me? They're telling me I'm fucking tired and I don't want to go to work. So let's listen to something that'll get me going and be amped up to have a smile on my face at, 7:45 in the morning.
Okay. Well, I think maybe planning some scheduled time and taking the practice, maybe giving you some opportunities to grow.
I absolutely love how optimistic you are that I can schedule things in my life. Like that undying thought that you just like, that I will start doing that is one day I'll even buy a planner for you. But yeah, when you're just like, yeah, just put this in your schedule. I'm like, dude, I don't even think that I don't have a schedule, but
dude, I think if you just filled out a journal, it would blow both our minds. Like if you just woke up in the morning, and there was one line that said, I want to. If you just put one word in there of like nut, You couldn't make it through the day if you had to get one item done. You couldn't function. You couldn't.
Yeah, I've been really loving the cold plunge idea, because now that it's so fucking cold here, I don't even need a cold plunge. I can just turn my shower on like hot and it will come out fucking freezing. And when people talk about just like, why do you do it? Like, because this is the worst part of my day. So I know the rest of my day is going to be better than this. I'm like, damn, that's awesome. But again, those 5 extra minutes of sleep. And just looking at Atlas sometimes in the morning, or when Disney hears my alarm, he's just like, "You gonna eat? You gonna eat? You gonna eat? Give me breakfast? Give me breakfast." And I'm like, if I don't get up right now, he's waking up Atlas. Like, fuck it. Like, but no, there will be the day I do it. I'm gonna blow your mind and fucking send you a list. Be like, look what I did today. This was a goal. This was a planned week.
Dude, you could even like gamify it yourself and see if you could 100 IQ Nagy and write item 1, write list. And then so by the time you're done with the list, you could be done with the first item. Like, you could literally, if you just put.
That's where finding my own power of going like, okay, I've got this small amount of time by myself in the morning, but I have to get myself ready, get Disney ready, and get going to work and things like that, and possibly assisting with Atlas, depending on Jared's schedule. Then I get home from work, self-care enough to get ready to help make dinner, help Jared get ready, evening activities, those kind of other things. And then, dude, this fucking cold is just burning me, pun intended, of like going in and out of the cold, like single digits, low double digits all day. I get home and finally warm back up, and it's like 6:30. We maybe have dinner, and I'm just like, I am so ready for bed, and that is so sad. Like, that's when I really miss Florida, because it's like sunshine and 80 always out, and it's like you walk outside, you're like, it's fucking tropics, this is glorious. And then it's Minnesota, where you're like, it snowed an inch today, and it didn't get above 13 degrees. Like, fuck.
All right. So one cool thing that they also did talk about was the different conversation and language of power. So one of the things that I kind of thought about throughout this whole book, and also kind of putting things together, going through thought processes, is one of the greatest sources of power anybody can have is time. And that's time to do whatever. If you want to ride your bike, if you want to build a business, if you want to go get Greta Thunberg out of jail again, if you want to watch Atlas gnaw on his donut again, I don't know. Anything you want, having time for it is the ultimate power in the world, in my opinion, after running through all this. And then they also talk about this in different cultures, and how in Western culture, you never, ever, almost never hear anybody say, I have time for nothing. Nobody ever has time for anything. We're always out of it, no matter what it is. So she challenged us as the readers to change our language on time. So, as opposed to saying, I don't have time, because that's impossible. Everybody has time. You're just wrapping it up in absolute other things. And you can make time for whatever that you want to actually do. You want to go to Costco, you can find time for it in the day. You want to ride your bike, you can find time for it in a day. Which means, therefore, you can find time for absolutely anything in a day. We just say that we don't have time because we don't prioritize time itself as a power. Does that make sense?
It does.
So with the language of saying, I never have time, you are actually, therefore, making yourself powerless by just saying that I don't have time.
Correct. No, I mean, this goes in hand with, words or spells, like no matter how much magic you put in them. And yeah, definitely quantifying time as I don't have time for it. It's like, well, let's actually look at the things in the day and see what you're actually doing. Like, you know, what, in college before I had a smartphone, I was not looking at social media websites. They barely existed. So what was I doing? Like, oh, I was going to the gym a lot. I was hanging out with fraternity bros a lot. Like, yeah, there are tons of things that you could be doing besides other stuff. And I think that is, again, one of the small shifts I'm working on and I think it's time. I also think gets mixed in with energy. I don't have the time for that. Like, no, you just can't really boot and rally to get yourself going for that. Like, I don't have time to go to Costco right now. Like, no, it's just going to be a huge pain in the ass because of traffic and you changing and getting everything and getting home and putting it all away and then carrying on. Like, that's not always time. It's just like the energy. And, I know many introverts that have told me, like, Nagy, you don't even understand how hard it is for me to just like rally to get up and go out. So I think I would associate time and energy as more my problem of saying like, oh, I don't have the time. Whereas sometimes it's like, dude, I just don't even have the energy to put my shoes back on and go on another walk right now. I definitely have the time. I just sat on my phone for another 30 minutes instead of going on a walk. I had that time, but I did not have the drive and energy to actually go do it.
So let me ask you this. When was the last time you told yourself you have time for something? And it can be anything. When was the last time you said, like, in the spur of a moment, it could be anything of literally you were walking out the door and you're like, damn, I want a Pop-Tart. Okay, I have time for that. And you threw the Pop-Tart in. Like, when did you last have a moment of that?
I think those happen more often, but I wouldn't call them like this is a power move of I'm taking the time to do it. It's more of like the ADHD of like, I want actually eggs for breakfast before I go to work. And that happened last week. Or taking a phone call. Like, I was walking out the door and it wasn't a Pop-Tart. I don't eat Pop-Tarts, but I was like, man, I really like don't want to just have, I think I had like yogurt and some fruit. And I was like, oh, that just wasn't substantial. I want an egg. And I was like, I've got 4 minutes before I actually need to leave for work. I could fry up an egg before, and I did. But I think conversations, we're taking the time to, let's say you called me. I can't think of an exact example, but I know there was one recently where I was doing something with someone and someone who I haven't talked to in a long time called me and I go, I need to take this because this person's reaching out from other places in time and space. And like, I know I agreed to hang out with you, but I'm going to take this really quick right here.
We'll come back to that, but okay.
Because that to me is very important of like, if I'm with you, like I don't agree on this always, but like if I'm hanging out with Jara here and we're going to do like again, totally just made up thing of like, we're doing like a date night and we're going to do this. And you call me, I'm going to go, hey, Chris, I'm on a date with Jara. You have my time for 5 minutes because I'm going to the bathroom. She's going to the bathroom, like whatever. I will hear your spiel and be like, cool, this isn't something I can talk to you about, but I'm glad you called. Love you lots. I'll talk to you later. Or, Jara, give me a minute. If this person's calling, I want to address or talk to them because it's been so long.
Okay. So ignoring the negative portions of it, of when we don't have time, when was the last time you had an hour to do an item? Go down Reddit rabbit hole, write your book, work out, X, Y, and Z. When was the last time you had an hour to do thing you wanted? Go golfing, insert,
Right. I mean, those come a lot. Like, Jared and I have a pretty good relationship. Like, his relationship's on where we got like a good teamwork going of, hey, you're going to do this, I'm going to do that. Like, I'm going to cook dinner and she's going to entertain Atlas, and then she's going to entertain Atlas so I can clean. Or, Jared, I'm fried from work. Can you please take Disney and Atlas out? I just want to sit on the couch and look at Reddit for like half hour. And then Jared will say the same thing of, Nagy, I just want to take an extra long shower right now. Can you please entertain Atlas and the dog? Like, yeah. So those things occur almost daily. Now, are they going to be a whole hour? No, those are times on like weekends or nights where it's like, hey, she took Atlas to gymnastics one night. She's like, hey, do you want to come with us to go play with other kids? I said, absolutely not. I just want to watch this hockey game. And I just got to do my thing. And then there's times where Jared will do that, but it's a very balanced or attempted to be spectrum of like basically hot potato with a human.
So out of your communication with Jara, when was the last time you took an hour for something? Like said item. When was the last time that happened? Barring your communication with Jara. I just want to know the last time in a day. I mean,
Thanksgiving break then, when I just had family around, okay. I was like, sweet, that's I had zero responsibility.
There you go. That works. So like a few days ago, then we'll call it about 5-6 days ago. Okay. So my argument would be the ability to have more time of that in a day is being able to have more power of I'm going to do X. I don't have to work because I have money. This is an example. Actually, you know what? I have $8 million in the bank. All right, everybody. So fucking buckle up there, losers.
Yeah, I'm going to hang out with LeBron because that happens a lot. Me and him are tight.
But the idea of just I like lock picking. So I could just pick up my lock and go, oh, I have an hour to do this in the middle of the day. I don't have to walk the dog. I don't have a responsibility. I don't have, this laundry list of items that I have to do. I can literally just get lost in the moment. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's what I think is truly the ultimate form of power. And also being able to use, back to our language thing around it, of just saying, I have an hour. Now, there's another side of that, and this kind of made me think to the idea of, they talked about perspective through introverts and extroverts, and this is where we're going to very much differ, is individual time to introverts is seen as a gift, whereas individual time to extroverts is seen as absolutely selfish. When you're extroverts see it as when you say, hey, I need time alone. They're like, no, why would you need time alone when the party's happening right here with everybody? That is like the most individualized thing, which if you think of it in the form of language is completely polar opposite and makes it hard to find a middle, especially between two people like ourselves that are introverts and extroverts, because we see power so differently in how we would use that time that we have free and available. Because you would say you have all the time in the world for Jara and Atlas. No matter what, you can make time for it. That is what you've chosen to do, and everything else is I don't have time for it. Whereas me, in my world, the idea of a wife and a child is the most burdening thing on the planet. I do not want anything to do with that. If you told me to watch your kid, I'd find the most way to entertain it in the safest area that wouldn't kill itself and leave it there. Right? And no offense to the kid, we'll play ball every now and then and do whatever, but after 3 hours, I need my time for me to go get lost in whatever. Right? So I think that's another part of language, and I'm very intrigued to hear your thoughts on the idea of being selfish with individual time. Because I think in my perspective of you as a human, you find that absolutely repulsive, that you would take individual time to people around you.
To varying extents. I mean, the idea of personal time is
okay.
Great example is when we were in South Dakota. This was when it was still fall, and Nikki, Jara's mother, was watching Atlas. Jara was kind of doing some stuff, and I was like, I can hang out here but I can also go golfing. And I just fucking went golfing because it didn't seem as selfish, because with me hanging out, Atlas didn't really want to hang out with Nikki as much. He wanted to make sure I was there, blah, blah, blah. So I guess it was like a little bit of a justification of like, okay, I'm giving you the gift of my son's time, and then I'm getting the gift of like unburdened time. I'm going to go golfing for a while. Call me when you need me. But other than that, it's like,
wow.
I don't.
Hold on. That was two polar opposite things in just what you said.
Yeah.
Did you realize that?
Yeah.
I'm giving you the gift of my son's time and I'm unburdening myself. Those were two complete polar opposite statements in a justification for the same thing. Wow, that's wild. Okay, go ahead. Right? Sorry. I just had I had to note that
that wasn't something I thought of at that moment, but that's like reflecting X amount of months later, being like, yeah, I guess, if we're going to throw it in with this kind of concept. But yeah, it was like, yeah, you want to watch Atlas, I want to go golfing. Here you go. Goodbye. And to be able to do that.
Just the idea that you said I'm going to unburden myself means that you needed alone time for whatever reason. That could be because you are overstimulated, and they talk about this oftentimes between introverts and extroverts. And I'm not saying that you have this all the time. This is what makes you not an extrovert. But again, to the extent where we all have varying degrees of ourselves, right? Like you've got a percentage of extrovert in you somewhere. It may be 5, it may be 10, it may be 20, right? Like, or knowing you, 1, right? But there's a need there that needs to be met when you're just kind of trying to find your alone time.
That. Yeah, so that's bonkers.
Yeah, so I think also changing your language would be one thing that helps, and giving yourself some of that alone time to find when you need those internal versus external stimulus. But back to the question, why do you find alone time to be selfish?
Because it's unproductive.
Ooh.
I'm not being productive. It's a personal thing of I'm not being productive. Like I said, when I said, Jerry, you take Atlas to gymnastics, I just want to sit here and look at Reddit and watch football. Like, I'm not using that time to be more productive. I'm using that to just like zone out. And so I haven't tricked my body. I haven't developed the determination and drive to make that productive yet. So if I'm not utilizing my personal time and alone time well, then it's just selfish, because it's like, hey, did you go to the gym? Like, no, actually I ate a bag of chips. Like, oh, so you just did nothing. Like, that's not a personal thing. So I guess I don't have that drive to use it productively. I'm not picking up a lock set. I'm not sitting down to write my book. It's like, dude, I got 45 minutes. I just want to sit here and do nothing. And that's not good. So I'd rather just not have that. Like,
so that's one thing they talk about in the book, which is actually very fascinating, is that people often have negative times of self-talk when they're extroverts because they don't believe in the idea of letting the mind wander. They don't believe in the idea of disconnecting from the exterior world to becoming connected with the internal world. So if it's not something that extroverts value or see, they will always be a negative self-talk around the idea of doing nothing, even though the idea of doing nothing is actually getting lost in Lord of the Rings Reddits, because that's how I love to perceive the world. And if I had a house, I would build a Lord, like that had no money, I'd build a Lord of the Rings room. And then I love sending memes to everybody because that's one of my favorite worlds. And that is getting lost in the internal mind. But since you can't tie that to an external stimulus, you see it as a negative and unproductive area. Whereas introverts love that space and love where they live inside of there and try to create a sacred, homogeneous area in the internal, because we do not enjoy the external stimulus or external. What's the word I'm looking for? No. over external stimulus, I guess. You get what I mean?
Well, see,
there's a point where you can't hear your mind, and that's when you almost become reclusive.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that to me is a very dangerous sword because, like I said, for a lot of those times, I'm looking at Reddit and I am very proud of the subreddits I follow where it's it's borderline entertainment, but a lot of education. So that's why I don't mind scrolling it forever because I'm going to look at a bunch of dumb memes, but I'm also going to learn about space or the new technologies or the stocks or news, whatever. Like everything's kind of mixed together in there. It's not quite as productive as like, oh, I'd rather almost just sit there with no phone.
We're talking about this. Change your language. It's not productive. It's use a different verb. Anything.
It is educational.
Okay, so it's educational. So you're learning shit that you enjoy.
It is. That's not. It's educationally numbing. Like that's the best way I describe it. Like it's not doom scrolling. I've watched people doom scrolling, and to me, I go, that is a waste of time where you're not even looking at things. Like you are getting the basis of stimulus of dances and trends and whatever versus me on my pedestal of like scrolling through halfway educational things and Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter memes. Like it's that mix, but it's like, to me, it's still not quite as productive as picking up a lockpicking set or picking up my book or just sitting there and going, I'm just going to do a squat every 30 seconds or every 3 minutes, whatever. Like those could be productive things rather than sitting on my phone, getting this minimal education while I kind of still doom scroll through whatever.
But it's giving your mind an opportunity to explore itself and its own interests. Because you said it at the very top of the thing. I'm proud of the algorithm that I curated. And that's awesome because it's somewhere for your mind to go. And then for the rest of the conversation, you just said how unproductive it was. So you were proud of how useless you made your time, but then you're not proud of using your useless time. You get what I'm saying? In the counterproductive sides of it, and I'm saying that in the conversation of the greater conversation of how healthy it is to give yourself alone time. And if you have 15 minutes to do whatever, however many barriers you have to jump through to get there, which is where I think we have a disconnect in power. Whenever you schedule that time, it's just time for whatever, literally whatever comes over you. Education, non-education, putting sleeves on your cards, fucking cleaning your glasses, learning and memorizing the decimal numbers on a dollar bill, whatever the hell you want it to be, right? Like it's giving your mind an outlet to truly make the internal and external a reality. So there is an homogeneous thing. Now, if you constantly see that area as unproductive, it will become further and further and further away from you. Now, what they do talk about in the book as well is if there are desires inside your body in any way, shape, or form, right? Now, obviously, you can ignore the ones they talk about, the observer idea of like, oh, I need to go have nicotine right now. I need to go do the little ones, right? The bigger desires of, I need to go ride my bike. I want to go put my name on Red Rocks. I want to write a book. I want to make sure that my kid has the greatest pitch ever because I was a pitcher and I know how to teach him that. I don't know. Whatever your said item is in a desire, if it's inside of you and you feel it being wrestled with and coming around more often than not, then that means that internal need is not being met externally. And that can be anything, right? So
finding it, loving it. And that's, I mean, again, those are the small steps that I started being of like, where am I going to find that? Like, why am I getting driven to alcohol or, you know, pouring my passions into all of my things into Alice, stuff like that. And it's because I was lacking these other areas. So just like the planner, they are ideas of grandeur until I start implementing these small steps that I'm doing every day, not looking at, oh, this is a waste of my time, and even being at work, I've been trying to change that dialogue of, I'm just wasting my time right here. Like, all right, no, I'm just learning patience. And I don't need to push this guy to do his job. I'm just going to like take in who this guy is as a person, like changing all these little words and casting new spells to just find new ways to empower myself through these mundane things so that maybe they're not mundane anymore. They are just a new lens to look at the world. And then, like you said, taking that energy and putting it into myself and finding these external factors to take back my own power in other ways.
So what desires do you have then?
To not have a dad bod now that Atlas is moving around more and more.
Okay.
It gets easier to do. So, like I said, if like, hey, I'm going to skip blank activity, but I'm still going to use my time to be more physical. I'm going to do these activities to get my energy up instead of kind of burning out through the day and needing coffee in the afternoon, being like, oh man, I'm buzzing with energy. I can't wait to work out tonight. Like I miss that sensation. I miss those feelings.
No rate
like, oh, I need
limiters on
another cup of
life.
coffee.
No rate limiters on life is one of the biggest sources of power. So let me challenge you this, because you did text me this yesterday. I said, hey, do you want to do 10 o'clock at night? And you're like, yeah, it'll give me an excuse to work out. Why does the excuse need to be working out? If we're scheduling time and our desire is to not be a dad bod, then let's make our 15 minutes of the day not being a dad bod and not make it, again, back to our language. If I need an excuse to work out, then I won't work out. If I have a reason to work out, I will work out.
Mm-hmm. It is casting these little spells and things like that. Mm-hmm. And it's also because most of the time we're like getting in bed with Atlas at like 8, and then he passes out after like 30, 40 minutes. And it's like, yo, should we get up and go do something? It's like, well, we've also been laying here in the dark, just kind of chilling on our phones. Like, it's really easy to just go to sleep right now. And versus where I'm like, I tell people, I'm like, dude, I used to stay up till like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning on ships, get up at 7:30, help deck set up and jump on a flow rider and crush it through the day with like 1 Red Bull. And now I'm finding I need like 2, 3 cups of coffee to get through a day in the cold. I'm like, this blows. I want my energy back. But it is because at night, like, we bog down, we play with Atlas, bath time. Now it's time to chill, get him like wired down, and we've also bogged down. So Jared and I have even talked like, okay, he's getting older. He's starting to sleep through the night more solidly without like waking up and needing us. We're going to use that time to sneak out, and we just got one of the escape room advent calendars. So we're going to do this every night. This is a good excuse to get out of bed and just do it. And each like little puzzle takes like 10, 15 minutes.
Is it an excuse to get out of bed or a reason to get out of bed?
It's a reason to get out of bed.
Love it. Keep going.
Loving it. Yeah. Casting spells. So yeah, we're going to start using it as like, yo, there's a reason to stay up a little later. Yeah, I'll do it. He can be taught. And just changing that to, hey, there's a reason that we have another hour. I'm going to keep saying it, man. I'll beat this horse down and get out of bed, do small workouts, then go to bed an hour later rather than, because for me, it was going to bed stupid early and I wake up at like 4 in the morning. I'm like, fuck, I should have just stayed up because now I'm going to be awake till like 5:30, get another crappy hour of sleep versus staying up till 11 midnight and just sleeping straight from midnight to 6, balancing these little things of time. But yeah, like you said, just casting those spells to give myself back power and, like, well, let's just watch this movie because it'll be an excuse for us to do it. Like, no, let's watch this movie. While we're doing it, we'll do some squats and kettlebells. And so that's, again, the ittiest little smaller steps in Atlas, the babiest of steps is all I'm starting with because, like I said, I texted you a week ago, be like, we should talk about power. Let's talk about sex and BDSM. And here we are talking about this. It's like, yeah, we're going to get there, but it's going to be roundabout little tiny ways.
So one of the things that they talk about is entrainment in the book. Do you know what entrainment is?
I do not.
So it is the idea and concept of basically if you start two grandfather clocks on opposite times, they're going to eventually sync up somewhere in the middle. And that has been studied. That's why women's menstrual cycles line up. They can't explain the phenomenon, but that's what it's called. It's called entrainment. So if you say back to casting these spells of I dare you, if you change out, literally do nothing else in your day, go about your day, the rest of it, and don't change a thing other than change your using of excuse to reason, you would be shocked at how much your world is going to change. Do that same entrainment concept of, oh, I have a reason to X. I have a reason to X. Is the same reason that the women on Adventure Ocean all lined up and needed chocolate at the same time. So for you, the more time you say excuse, the more you don't have time. The more you say reason, the more I have a reason to do X. And I think you'll be shocked at how much things change into action, or you feel comfortable with inaction.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that I'm definitely going to have to focus on that one. But like I said, there's a lot of other different spells I'm going to be trying to cast through my dialogue just of life that I've noticed small things that are making big differences. So now,
like what?
We'll find that reason in the madness.
Like what? What's a good word that you're finding changing how you see the world?
Most of it is like wasting time. Like, again, it's an hourly job. There's some times where I'm like trying to get something done and my coworker's like, yeah, we just wait here. And I go, oh, we're just wasting time. Like, is there something else we can be doing? And, instead just being like, hey, what's a personal thing about you I didn't know? Or, engaging in dialogue or using those times to pick their brains on, like, a dumb example is, hey, I'm having a problem, a mechanical failure with a dishwasher. It's doing this. What kind of things should I be doing? Instead of saying, I'm wasting my time, I need to go work on this dishwasher that's broken. It's, hey, by the way, since we have a minute, I'm working on this problem. Yeah.
Brother, that whole statement was mind-boggling to where we think, hey, since we have a minute, we have time, can I ask you a question for knowledge, which I enjoy getting? Holy shit, dude. You're making my head hurt. This is a new man just in an hour.
Yeah. So, but it's small things like that I'm trying to. That was a huge step. That took a lot of brain power right there. But it is that kind of dialogue because I came home even like at lunch from today, and I was like, dude, I just sat around on my ass. I was wasting time. And then after lunch, I like talked to my boss, and I was like, hey, I don't really have any projects this afternoon. Could you please teach me some stuff? And he immediately was like, oh, hell yeah. I don't have any more calls. I totally would love to. And I was like, sweet. Instead of dwelling and being all pissed, Jerry goes, how was the rest of your day? I was like, actually, it was really good. So I asked him to actually teach me, and he said, yes. Like, fucking mind-blowing. When you ask for help, someone will help you out. So instead of dwelling and feeling like I was in this state of just powerlessness, I said, and it happened twice today. I asked two people directly. I was like, will you help me? And the answer was yes, when I already, because of previous times, thought the answer would be no, but this time it was yes, and I had a fucking magical day.
Dude, that's awesome.
So, yeah.
Words are power, man.
Yeah.
That's why they call it spelling.
That's all right. Put that shit on a t-shirt. It will be on Crewzin into the void. No.
But I really think you should read that book. That book blew my mind in so many different aspects.
After everything you sent me, I showed Jared. I was like, look at this essay. And she was like, damn, what is it talking about? I was like, it's talking about how I should have found this fucking book. Gotten it instead of going down. Like, I was like, I could show you my history of like all this weird shit I listen to, but this book's definitely going on the list.
Instead of having reasons not to listen to it.
Exactly.
I found reasons not to listen to it.
All right.
There we go.
It's getting added to the list.
Now, another thing I actually do want to talk about in the power aspect is they recognize this in Eastern and Western cultures a lot, is more introverts versus extroverts. If you look at Western culture, what does everybody see as the powerful guy? Yosemite Sam, right? Like the loud gun, pew, 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 big whatever. That's how everybody in the world sees us. Whereas we can say we value that too, right? Like, look at every grown man on Sunday. What happens? He paints his face, he takes his t-shirt off, and he shouts at football. Like, that's what he does. Whereas in Japanese and Asian cultures, it's revered to be stoic and quiet, impatient. Whereas in America, we're like, what do you mean you can't come up with an answer in 3 seconds? God damn it, Nagy, you left a pause in there? Why'd you leave a pause? So now I got to keep talking and fill the void here with something that's actually going on, which actually made me think about different things between us. Right. Okay, so now since you didn't give me a full time to think about the conversation here, we're going to keep going on. And so you are seen in the Eastern culture as the powerful dominant one because you're controlling the conversation. Whereas the Western culture, you now look, or in Eastern ideas, you look like not a powerful person just sitting there letting me talk, even though I'm just talking over you. Exactly. Even though I'm just talking over you. Even though I'm just, go ahead. You got it.
Yeah. No, and I mean, that is huge differences of Western culture of, hey, you just met this guy. How was he? Like, I don't know, pretty quiet. Seems kind of weird. And it's like, no, he's just a quiet person. Versus like in Eastern views, it could be like, that guy didn't shut up. Like, he must be an idiot that he just has to keep talking the whole time.
Yeah, and it's very different in like views of lifestyle. Same way in the aspect of like their parties. You party, you go home. Right? Like you don't bring everybody to the house and keep the party running and X, Y, and Z. Everybody, their alone time after we've done party is respected. And whereas in America, if I came to you, I don't know how many countless times I've had to Irish exit just because you would shout at me for not staying at the bar.
I still have energy. You got to do this. Like, I'd
be like, I really want to go take a shower, and then you would call me 10 minutes later. Where are you, man? Taking a shower, bud. Like,
aren't you done? Are you coming back? Like, no, I'm showering and going to bed. Like, usually I just shower and go back to the party. That's what you can do. Yeah,
and it's seen very different in the two different cultures, whereas in American culture it's seen as very powerful to be about and be in the society, whereas in Eastern cultures, the almost lack of time is revered, right? Because they're busy doing other things for themselves. Because it's more of, you also think back to the shopping cart theory, right? When am I doing the greater good for everybody else? And when am I doing the greater good for me, right? Because if I am putting my shopping cart back, I'm paying respects into the society of, hey, I know somebody's going to need this later. Let me put it in a convenient spot where they know they're going to find it, right? Versus me just leaving it at my car because that's convenient for me and moving on.
Right.
There's a lot more in the Eastern cultures of respecting people's time and respecting the greater space of areas. They also
the
never shake
integrity
hands.
of
Yeah.
the societal space. That is a huge thing that everyone needs awareness of, and you can see how little shit that matters in America with trash and litter and, you know, name a thing. The shopping cart's a perfect thing of, you could go to countless stores and like the parking lots are littered, and it's because my time is more valuable than anything that affects you. Like, yo, you're gonna put your shopping cart away? Like, dude, they pay a shopping cart guy. Like, what's a little more work for him? I'm helping him out. You're like, that's really your justification? Like, that's a very powerless statement of, everything I do is very important and doesn't affect you. You know, and that's everywhere from shopping carts to driving. The person who cuts across, or like, you know, just blows their way through 10 people's lives because they're trying to merge over 5 lanes in traffic because they just wanted to be in the left or right when they needed to be somewhere else. Like, that kind of mentality is very much more westernized, of like, you get there, it is your mission, you complete the goal, versus like, how is this affecting everyone around me?
Yeah. And so with that, introverts oftentimes have a very negative self-dialogue, because at least in America, because we are seen as exactly to what you just said at the top of, how was that guy? Quiet? That's weird. So if just because I didn't say anything and I let you talk and overpower me, you just see me as weird. You don't even see me as, oh, that's just a guy that's thinking. Your instant thought is, because you don't talk, it's weird and different and odd. So they have that internal dialogue.
I think meeting boyfriends or girlfriends, yo, what'd you think of this person? Yo, they were really quiet, so I don't fucking know what to tell you. Versus like, yeah, they were just really quiet, so you must have had someone that, like, you know, like a thinker. It's never that thought.
It's
they're
never
quiet.
that.
They must be a good person. Like, it was really awkward. Like, oh.
they're quiet. They must be thinking a lot. They must have an internal dialogue. I should have You know what? Now that we're saying this, I should have been quiet and maybe given him a moment to think about something and get it out. That's on me. Sorry, room. That never happens.
He was really, you're like, hey, how is Chris? Like, he was really quiet. I must have just not been stimulating the conversation with anything good. Like, that's never a thought that is put out in the world. Like, it was quiet. It was weird. Yeah. Like,
it's never the internal thing. It's always the external from the extroverts. It's never me as the problem. Whereas introverts are like, oh man, he just didn't give me a word in edgewise. I guess he thinks I have nothing good to say. All right. Oh, you must be better than me. All right. I'll talk to you later. Oh, bye. Wait, I didn't say a single word. Okay, I'm going to go back to doing whatever. Whereas, that's the internal dialogue that people don't realize that introverts have. And back to exactly what you're saying is, nobody goes, you know what? He might have been deep in thought of what he was doing. I never just once said, hey, what you thinking about? Because, which is honestly one of the greatest things that this writer was saying was like, if you ask any introvert that, and literally just let their mind go, you'll be fascinated. They'll talk to you about whatever. But you've got to let them kind of drive the conversation, not in a, oh, let me take this over, because extroverts love talking. They can talk about anything. That is the whole point of being enthralled by external stimulus, where internal people only really like their dialogue, not in a I'm selfish me type of way, but in like, you know what? I was up till 4 a.m. last night working on a Rubik's Cube, and I'm fucking, like, I'm like 3 algorithms off getting this thing solved, and that's really all I can think about on this moment. But if you just asked me, hey, Chris, what are you thinking about? I'm going to be like, dude, last night I almost solved a Rubik's Cube, and I'm like 3 algorithms off. And you, who never solved a Rubik's Cube, is going to be like, tell me how to fucking do it, because I want to know. Yeah. But nobody ever does that. Nobody. Nobody.
Or inversely, like, I don't really want to talk about a Rubik's Cube. Let's talk about this sports team. And you're like, well, that just shut me down. Like, fuck talking about that now. Like, so it's the small shifts in power that play out on so many different these aspects of life that we're just trying to figure it all out. But I'm so excited that this book was so good because, like I said, I can't wait to get into it. But it just really shows that you're familiar with the concept of the word sonder, that everybody else in the entire planet has something going on in their brain too. They have all their little trials and tribulations. That is, I think, recognizing that is probably one of the most powerful things you can do, because of all the things you've got going on and all your problems and stuff like that, almost no one else in the planet really cares about those things because everyone else has their own thing. So you have the power to overcome all these small little things, but also you have the power to accept other people's when you actually put your mind to it, because it's always going to be there in all of us, introverts and extroverts, but getting on those similar wavelengths is kind of the hard part of it. But it's there. You just got to learn how to listen to it.
I think we nailed a lot of it, and it all starts with language, and it all starts with thought, being the observer to your own thoughts, and also using our language appropriately.
Definitely.
Casting our spells, as some would say. Yeah. Anything, and back to like our thing before I was interrupting you, and I was saying about our cruising into the void thing, is they talked about how internal monologues are oftentimes the void in the ethos. Right. And you always say you're shouting into the void. You're shouting into me, which is the void.
Yeah.
And you want to see what the void echoes back, which is me, and you hate it.
Echoing back
72% of the time.
72% for sure. We'll crank that number down, but we'll get there. Baby steps, just the littlest baby steps.
Yeah, so that was more internal reflection I had while listening to this book.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, on that note, guys, leave us a like, leave us a comment, and keep on cruising.
Is AB Fantasy, brought to you by Schnaggles. Hey guys, Nagy here. Got a nice little book I wrote. This is for my son Atlas, available on Amazon. You can order your copies. This is an alphabet book to teach your kids all the letters of the alphabet with amazing pictures and fun rhyming schemes. I was really bored of reading Atlas's books because they weren't entertaining, so I decided to make one of my own. But check it out. Give it a like on Amazon. Made it as cheap as possible while still making a solid $1.50 for myself. So check it out. It'll make the hero out of all of us while we learn the alphabet together. Thanks, guys.